Welcome, dear friends. As we enter the second week of Lent, we reflect on the virtue of humility, guided by divine intimacy by Father Gabriel of St. Mary Magdalen, OCD. Humility is the foundation of the spiritual life, making room for God by emptying the soul of pride. We'll explore how humility leads to deeper union with God, fosters trust and abandonment, and transforms even our failures into opportunities for grace. Through self-knowledge, acceptance of humiliations, and following the example of Christ's meek and humble heart, we seek to grow in true humility this Lent. Join me in this meditation on the path to deeper surrender and divine intimacy.
Welcome back to another deep dive into divine intimacy.
Yep.
I'm really excited about this one because we're going to explore something so foundational for Carmelite spirituality, but something I know a lot of us struggle with, and that's humility. We're going to be looking at Meditations 106 through 111.
Oh, excellent.
And they offer incredible insights from Carmelite masters like St. Teresa of Ávila and St. John of the Cross. You know, there's just so much to unpack when it comes to humility, particularly how it connects with charity, which I think is going to be really surprising for some folks.
I think that's a great point, and it really is surprising. Humility in the Carmelite tradition isn't just some, nice extra. It's really the bedrock of everything. St. Teresa of Ávila even compares it to the foundation of a building. If you don't have that solid base, any attempt to build a spiritual life is going to be shaky at best.
So true.
It's like trying to build a house on sand. You can have the best intentions, all the materials, but when that first storm comes along, it's all going to wash away.
It's like that parable in Matthew, right? The house built on sand versus the house built on rock. Such a powerful image. And I love how Father Gabriel connects this directly to charity, saying that pride keeps us from loving God and others because it keeps us focused on ourselves, on our own achievements and needs.
Absolutely. It's that self-centeredness that pride fosters. And St. John of the Cross takes this even further, explaining that emptying the soul of pride is actually what makes space for God to work in us.
I can see that.
It's only when we're stripped of all pretense, when we truly see ourselves as nothing in our own eyes, that's when true union with God can happen. That's when his grace and love can truly fill us.
Wow, it's like a paradox.
It is. It's a paradox. We acknowledge our nothingness, and that's what creates the space for God's fullness.
That's a tough one to grasp, It seems so counterintuitive to what we naturally want as humans, right?
Of course.
We're wired to stand out, to achieve, to be recognized. So how do we reconcile that with this call to humility?
That's where understanding our place before God becomes so essential. Humility really helps us to understand this fundamental truth that we are utterly dependent creatures. We rely on God for our very being. It's not just acknowledging our weaknesses or flaws. It's acknowledging that every breath, every good thought we have, every act of love comes from him.
Like a machine.
Exactly.
Even the most complex machine still needs its maker.
Yeah.
Without the maker, it's just inert metal and wires.
Precise.
We might think we're running the show, but in reality, we're completely dependent on God.
And that dependence extends even to the supernatural order. We might know our faith. We might be faithful to prayer and devotions, but even for a saint, every act of supernatural virtue requires actual grace from God. Think about that. Even the saints who are closest to God need his grace constantly.
So what does that say about us?
It's a powerful reminder that we're always in need of his help, no matter how far along the spiritual path we might think we are.
It's truly humbling when you think about it. It reminds me of St. Paul's words, "What hast thou that thou hast not received?" It challenges us to look at our gifts, our accomplishments, even our very lives, and recognize that it's all ultimately a gift.
It's a complete shift in perspective.
It really is.
Moving away from pride and towards gratitude, it leads us to ask, if recognizing our nothingness is so essential, can it actually lead to greater confidence?
That sounds paradoxical.
It is, but the answer is a resounding yes.
Okay, how can that be?
How?
How can embracing our limitations, admitting our weaknesses, actually make us more confident?
Well, think about it this way. It all goes back to our relationship with God. Jesus often uses the image of a child with their father to illustrate our reliance on him.
Right.
A small child trusts completely in their father's love and provision, knowing that no matter what, they will be taken care of. And that trust brings a deep sense of security and confidence. That's the kind of childlike faith we're called to have in God.
I love how St. Thérèse of Lisieux describes it. She talks about a child who doesn't want to grow up because they're perfectly content to receive everything from their father. They don't need to prove themselves or strive for independence.
That's a beautiful image of how humility allows us to surrender to God's care.
And find true freedom in that surrender.
Exactly. And the amazing thing is that God actually waits for us to empty ourselves of that self-reliance before he pours out his grace.
He wants to fill us with his gifts, but we have to make space for them.
We do, by letting go of our own limited and often misguided efforts. It makes me wonder, what might you be holding on to that's preventing God from working more fully in your life?
What a question.
What are you clinging to out of pride or fear that's blocking the flow of his grace?
That's definitely something to ponder, especially during Lent. But what about when we fall short? When we stumble and make mistakes, even though we're trying so hard? Father Gabriel talks about the discouragement we can feel in those moments, and we all know that feeling. You're trying to be good, to grow in holiness, and then you mess up. It's so disheartening.
It can be so discouraging, and Father Gabriel links that discouragement to two main causes, both of which I think are rooted in pride. The first is relying too much on our own strength, thinking we can do it all ourselves. So when we inevitably fall, our pride takes a hit and we feel defeated.
Makes sense.
The second is a lack of reliance on God. We forget to turn to him in times of success, so we don't naturally turn to him when we fail.
It's like we're trying to go it alone.
We are, and as Ecclesiastes says, woe to him that is alone when he falleth, for he hath none to lift him up.
It's a hard truth, but an important one to remember. We need God's grace, not just to persevere in doing good, but also to lift us up when we fall. I appreciate how St. Teresa of Ávila speaks to these moments. She emphasizes balancing self-knowledge with contemplation of God's greatness.
Yes, such a good advice.
She says if we just focus on our shortcomings, we can easily fall into despair.
Oh, absolutely.
But when we contemplate God's majesty, we see our weaknesses in a truer light.
It puts things in perspective.
It really does, without the distortions of pride.
And St. Teresa makes a distinction between true humility and false humility.
Right, there's a difference.
False humility can lead to distress, a lack of confidence, and even self-loathing.
So how do we know if it's false humility?
Well, Father Gabriel points out that the devil can use those feelings of distress to actually keep us from growing in love.
Oh, wow.
True humility shouldn't lead to despair or self-condemnation. It should lead us to a deeper reliance on God's mercy.
So it's not about beating ourselves up.
No, not at all.
That's a really important distinction. It's so easy to think we're being humble when really we're just putting ourselves down.
It's a very subtle trap.
It is.
Yeah.
But Father Gabriel calls humility a soothing balm for our wounded souls. So even when we feel powerless, even when we're stuck in that cycle of failing,
Humility can draw us to God's mercy.
and his mercy is what sets us free.
Exactly.
That allows us to get back up and keep going.
It does. True humility allows us to experience the healing power of God's love, even in those really dark moments.
Which leads us to something else Father Gabriel talks about, humiliations.
Oh, yes.
He points out this paradox. A lot of people want humility, but very few actually want to be humbled.
It's true.
He asks, can you really have one without the other?
That's a great question. It gets to the heart of what true humility means. Can we really say we're humble if we shy away from those experiences that force us to confront our pride and limitations?
I guess not.
St. Teresa of Ávila, who knew a lot about humiliation, she once said that she never heard anything bad said about her that she didn't think she actually deserved.
Wow.
That's powerful, isn't it?
It really is. It makes me think of gold being refined in fire, how the heat of humiliation can actually purify us.
That's a great analogy. Father Gabriel makes a distinction between being humble and being humbled. It's not the humiliation itself that makes us humble, but our willingness to accept it. Everyone experiences humiliations, but not everyone allows them to actually make them humble.
Right. It's our response that matters.
It's our choice, our act of will, to embrace the humbling experience. That's what leads to genuine humility.
So it's not about seeking out humiliation, but about being open to it when it comes.
Yes.
Seeing it as something God can use for our good.
Precisely. St. Bernard says that being humble and being humbled are two very different things. We can do things that look humble, but if our hearts aren't truly humble, it's all just for show.
So it really comes down to the heart.
It does.
And that leads us to what Father Gabriel calls humility of heart. He points us back to Jesus' invitation. Learn of me, for I am meek and humble of heart, emphasizing that every virtue has to flow from the heart to be genuine. And that's especially true for humility. You can go through the motions, do all the right things externally, but if your heart isn't truly humble, it's all just an act.
It's like putting on a costume. Exterior acts of humility are valuable, but they're meaningless without a genuinely humble heart.
St. Thomas Aquinas says that true interior humility will be reflected in our words and actions. But cultivating that humility of heart, it's a lifelong journey, isn't it?
It is a lifelong journey.
A constant battle against our pride. It's both difficult because it goes against our nature, and yet also easy in a way because we see our failings all the time.
It's true. Our failings are constant reminders of our need for God.
Almost like built-in reminders.
Yes. And the good news is, Father Gabriel assures us that God gives us all the grace we need to grow in humility.
All we have to do is ask.
That's it.
Even the saints struggled with this. St. Thérèse said her constant awareness of her own weakness left no room for vanity.
Such a powerful testament to the transformative power of humility of heart. True humility, it seems, is less a destination and more a journey, a process of surrendering to God's grace and allowing Him to transform us from the inside out.
It's about dying to ourselves so that Christ can live more fully in us.
Exactly.
You know, one of the things that really hit me in these meditations was the focus on dependence. Father Gabriel keeps reminding us that we are completely dependent on God for everything, not just our material needs, but for our very existence.
Yeah.
Every good thought, every action. It's like we're constantly being held in existence by His grace.
That is such a powerful insight. And it's so easy to forget, especially when we're feeling, competent, successful. It's easy to think we've got it all figured out, that we're in control. But the truth is, we're as dependent on God's grace as a newborn baby is on its mother.
Wow.
And to recognize that dependence, to embrace it, that's at the very heart of humility.
We have to empty ourselves of our pride, our self-sufficiency, this illusion of control, in order to be filled with God's grace. And it's in that emptiness, that surrender, that we find true freedom and fulfillment.
It's a beautiful paradox, isn't it? The more we let go of ourselves, the more we're filled with God's love and grace. It's like the more we die to ourselves, the more we come alive in Christ.
It really is. And it brings us to this question as we continue our journey through Lent that I think is so important for all of us to reflect on. If even the greatest saints, the ones closest to God, needed His grace for every good act, what could become possible in our own lives if we truly embraced humility, if we let God be our all?
That's a question worth pondering, because the truth is, there's no limit to what God can do in us, through us, when we surrender to His will, when we let go of our own limited vision and embrace His infinite possibilities.
You know, I think sometimes we really underestimate the power of humility. We see it as a weakness, maybe something to be ashamed of. But as we've been exploring, it's actually the key. It unlocks the door to a life of abundance, a life full of grace, peace, and joy. Humility is the path that leads us home to the heart of our Father.
And it's a path that's open to all of us. It doesn't require, special talents, special abilities. All it requires is a willingness to surrender, to let go of our pride, our self-reliance, and say yes to God's grace.
So as we move towards Easter, let's all be inspired to embrace this path of humility, to walk it with courage and trust, knowing that God is always with us, guiding our steps, leading us closer to His loving embrace.
And let's remember, humility isn't a destination, it's a journey, a lifelong journey of becoming more like Christ, more loving, more compassionate, more truly human.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into humility. We hope these insights from divine intimacy stay with you long after this is over. May God bless you abundantly on your journey of faith.
Thank you so much for listening, praying, and being part of this journey. I hope these words have inspired and uplifted you. Until next time, may God bless us and keep us close to His heart. Take care and see you soon.